Greetings and welcome. We are in Junior English, and we are now ready to introduce to you the second of our Arthur Miller offerings. In many ways, you could argue our junior year has been constructed around the viewing and study of Arthur Miller's work. You'll recall we began our year, with the play Crucible by Arthur Miller, right? We now will end our junior experience with a different Arthur Miller offering, Death of a Salesman. Now, taken in unison together, these two plays constitute really two of the most important plays in 20th century American theater. Miller is doing some powerful things in both of those plays. There are few juniors who watch Crucible, and at the very end, when John Proctor gets jacked, they go, yeah, the dude got what he deserved. No. Most juniors will report that they have a sickening feeling in their gut at the very end of that play because they realize there's just no place for Proctor to go. He could run away, and that would be a cowardly act. He could lie and say, yeah, I'm a witch, and sign off, but that would be a cowardly act. He can lie as he does and embrace the notion of being a witch, willingly knowing that he's lying, but in the process of doing that, his wife maybe says that he gains honor, but he loses his life, and therefore he can't provide for his family as a father and as a husband. Again, a viewer of that play feels stuck. Let's just say it out loud. Miller, the writer of these plays, he likes to do this to his audiences. They have a word from that for way back when. Aristotle simply called it tragedy. So let's call it tragedy. Miller is the great American tradition. He writes tragedy. His plays are not intended to be hopeful, uplifting, happy plays, which clearly begs a question, dude, why should we be watching and reading texts of tragedy? Well, let's first of all talk about the history of tragedy. Tragedy as an offering of texts goes way back in time. The earliest tragedies that we know about and are still in existence come from the Greek epoch, when the great Sophocles, not Socrates, that's a different thinker, Sophocles will write his famous trilogy of Antigone, Oedipus at Colonus, and Oedipus Rex. Now, I believe that you were exposed at some level to the play Antigone last year, a play about a woman who has a brother, two brothers, who will kill themselves outside the wall of Thebes, and one of them is given proper burial, the other is not. She has to make the decision to bury the one brother who is not given proper burial, but in so doing, she is committed to death. And the tragic downfall of all parties involved happen in Antigone. Of course, Oedipus Rex you're maybe familiar with, the story about the cat who is predicted to kill his dad, marry his mom, and have children with his mom. He doesn't want to do that, so he leaves the town where he was raised. What he doesn't know is that his mom and dad are not his real mom and dad. That he was in fact left alone on a mountain. He was found. He was raised by his stepmother and father. And in the process of trying to escape the terrible prophecy, he ends up actually killing his dad and marrying his mom and having 4 children by his mom. But he never knows. He never knows. It's not like this is intentional. This is totally unintentional. He's got no clue what he's doing until the end of the play. Then, of course, again, the tragic flaw and fall. Let's talk Aristotle for a second. Aristotle is the Greek writer who said, let me tell you what good tragedy does. Now, when he says this in a famous essay called Poetics. Poetics. Now, if you looked at that title, you would think this has something to do with poetry. Well, that's because the early word poetry is our word today, drama. And I don't mean 8th grade drama. I mean drama as in what happens on a stage, okay? Aristotle said the following, and by the way, I'm going to be brief here, because as seniors of mine next year, you're going to hear this lecture in for full detail as we talk about Aristotelian understandings of tragedy. Aristotelian, obviously, the adjectival use of the noun Aristotle. Aristotle's understanding of tragedy works something like this. He says, look, At the beginning of the play, you can think about this as a rubric, for example, to reading Crucible. At the beginning of the play, you have a really honorable character who is held in high esteem. At the end of the play, that cat is jacked. He gets bombed. That's the definition of tragedy. The fall of the protagonist. Now, what is a protagonist? Well, P-R-O, protagonist, pro, in favor of. The protagonist is the character in the play, or the text, with whom the audience most identifies. Got me? That's the protagonist. What is the antithetical to the protagonist? It's called what? The antagonist. Outstanding. The antagonist. That character with whom the audience does not identify. Got me? In the fall of the protagonist, Aristotle said, there are powerful emotions that the audience feels. He calls that release of emotions purgation or catharsis. By the way, your ability to flow my lecture right now is evidence of how prepared you are for your senior year and your university experience. While I'm talking, you should be listening and flowing what I'm saying. In other words, you should be trying to put it in your own words. Then you hand in your notes to me, and I have some sense that you are able to follow my lecture. So at this point, for example, I've made some introductory observations about Miller. I made some similar kinds of conversations about early Greek drama. I mentioned Sophocles and Oedipus as well as Antigone. And now I'm mentioning Aristotle's Poetics. It's a really simple indicator of how well prepared you are for your senior year that right now on your paper in front of you, the word Aristotle appears as well as the word Poetics. If it doesn't, then you're behind. You're falling behind. So you want to make sure that you adjust real quickly. And now pay closer attention to what I'm saying so that you can write it down on your notes. Okay? Back to Aristotle. Aristotle argues that in the fall of the protagonist, from a lofty state to a debased state, the audience goes through a powerful release of emotions that he called, two words, catharsis or purgation. To purge, or catharsis, to release. Release what? Well, if you go to sad movies, you often do find yourself, if not crying, certainly feeling badly. Guys, we're told, are not supposed to cry. And yet, very few male students I've ever showed the Crucible to, like I said, are jumping up and down like they're at a Broncos game by the end of that play. They maybe won't cry, but they clearly ain't happy. In other words, dude, that just sucks. That guy got seriously jacked. That's the point of Aristotle's ideas. Now, as the protagonist falls, and this purgation or catharsis, release of emotion occurs, the audience will feel, Aristotle said, two powerful emotions. One, they will feel fear. As they identify with the protagonist, they're like, crap, that would be bad. That would be bad if that happened to me. Two, they have some sense of empathy, pathos, compassion, where they feel badly for the other person, the person in the play that actually gets jacked. Now, I'll pause here and make the point that for Aristotle, this is what makes you different from your dog or your cat. No kidding. That's a fun question to ask. What's the difference between you and a dog? Well, beyond the obvious answer, not much. The actual answer is not much. The truth of the matter is, in fact, if you want to itemize and analyze it, there isn't a tremendous difference physiologically between you and most other mammals. Agreed? That's just the truth. Correct? And if you started to really push the question, what is the difference between you and an animal? Very quickly, you'd be able to say things that probably there's a response to. Granted, there are things that you can do that an animal can't, but I can always find things an animal can do that you can't. And if you want to throw out the argument of language, I would say what most biologists will say, yeah, the more we study this, the more we begin to realize those whales, they got some serious kind of complex language. Maybe far more complex than anything humans have derived. So what's the difference? Well, Aristotle has an answer, and it goes something like this. I'll paraphrase. Both you and a dog can look at the sunset, but only one of you can appreciate it. That is a profound statement for Aristotle. You might want to write it down and think about it later. Just don't do it while you're driving. Both you and a dog can look at the same sunset, but only one of you can appreciate the sunset. That appreciation, we use the academic term aesthetics, the appreciation of the beautiful or the sublime. That aesthetics is central to what makes us human. Are you ready for this? Aristotle says drama, tragedy, is foundational to what it means to being a human being. Where do we learn how to have compassion for others? Aristotle says it happens in the viewing of these amazing plays from his time period. Forecast forward to 1600 Common Era. And let's talk Shakespeare. Shakespeare reinvents the tragedy and provides it for us on the stage in ways no one ever had before. Clearly, Shakespeare is the literary antecedent to Arthur Miller. Clearly. In other words, Miller is playing a game that's really old. Shakespeare, in many ways, I'm not going to say invents the game, but I will say he perfects the game. You know this already. Think about your experience of studying Romeo and Juliet. At the beginning of the play, our protagonists, two young people, began high. They are in a powerful state financially. They got basically everything they want. You could call them spoiled brats if you want, but be that as it may, they're just adolescents. They're kids just like you. But what do we know about them at the end of the play? They've gone through a tragic falling, and they're both dead. And again, at the end of Romeo and Juliet, unless you're a really sardonic person, you're probably not jumping up and down going, yeah, right? You kind of have a tendency to go, well, that's really sad. And in the process of the fall and identification with the protagonist, obviously, there is some purgation of both fear and pity, as I said, pathos, okay? That's by design. And as you prepare to study Shakespeare with me next year, and we look more closely at the other tragedies, we'll pay attention to what you already know from your study of Julius Caesar. The play, of course, is poorly named. Think about what I just said. The play, of course, is poorly named, Julius Caesar, the tragedy of Julius Caesar. Because if you're applying the Aristotelian view of drama, tragedy, to that play, who in that play is the most respected individual, very high in the understanding of the people of Rome? He will commit an act that he thinks is the right action, the killing of Caesar. And he will say in his speech, I didn't do it for myself. It's not like I want to become Caesar. I rather did it because of the people of Rome. And yet in the end of the story, that very same actor named Brutus will turn a sword on himself and kill himself. Again, at the end of that play, unless you have a very sardonic wit, most of the time, you don't jump up and go, yeah, dude, he killed himself. No, that's the whole point. At the end of the tragedy of Julius Caesar, Brutus is a fallen, a broken man. But he didn't mean to end up that way. That's why he's a protagonist, not an antagonist. We look at him and we go, you know, I understand doing something that I think is for a right cause, and then everything goes wrong sideways, and then all of a sudden I'm totally screwed up. I totally get that, and I completely feel some sense of pity for a guy like Brutus who did what he did because he thought it was the right thing to do, and then all of a sudden everything goes sideways and he ends up screwed. Totally get that. All right, let's go to the 20th century. Into the 20th century, from the influence of Shakespeare, we then are going to see powerful modern drama. Let's talk about the Crucible for just a moment. Now that I've given you some examples, on your notes, you ought to be able to quickly jot down, why is the Crucible a tragedy of Aristotelian proportions? Why? According to Aristotle, he says tragedy does these things. 1, there's a protagonist. Name him from the Crucible. John Proctor, good. 2, that protagonist will fall. Through the course of the play, he will be ruined in some way. But he will fall because of, now I'm going to use an interesting Aristotelian idea, his hubris or his pride. Early on, John Proctor has the opportunity to end this entire foolishness, doesn't he? All he has to do is to say what he knows about Abigail Williams. Does he do it? No, he does not. Why doesn't he do it? He says it's because he never knew everything was going crazy. What's the real reason he doesn't do it? He can't disclose it. What do you mean he can't disclose it? Dude, he does disclose it, and he discloses it in front of a court of law. So obviously he can disclose the fact that he slept with his servant girl and then he had her fired. He could do that. Why won't he do that? That admission leads to some serious problems, doesn't it? Right? Especially in John Proctor's day, right? It's a problem for him. In other words, his pride, his hubris, keeps him from admitting what it is that he did. Of course, that pride leads to his end. He tries to fix it, but it's too late. And by the time he's admitted that he slept with Abigail Williams, it's too late. And Abigail Williams has the ability to turn everything back on him. Abigail Williams in our play is the what? Antagonist. You bet. The antagonist of our play. And of course, at the very end, John Proctor is faced with a difficult decision. It is a decision most audience members do not like being put in. It frustrates them. Right? It frustrates them. They find themselves saying, I kind of get that he did this thing with Abigail Williams, and I really wish that he had just gone ahead and been a man about it and fessed up early on, but he didn't. But now what do? Do you lie? Or do you tell the truth? If you lie, you get to go free. If you tell the truth, it's a tough position to be in. Anyone watching that play will engage in the two actions. We'll finish our brief notes on Crucible. The two actions of fear and pity. Obviously, it's a fearful thing to think. What would it be like if, unbeknownst to you, all of a sudden these forces start moving against you, and by the time you realize it, you're in the middle of the blender, and somebody's doing this with their finger about to hit the blend button, and you got no way out. You got no way out. I mean, you start thinking about it, you're like, dude, I am totally jacked. There isn't anything I can do in a situation like this. That's called fear, because you have no control. What about pity? Well, it's inevitable that you're going to look at John Proctor and you can't help but feel a little bit of pathos for the poor guy. He had a moment of weakness. He sleeps with Abigail Williams. Clearly a stupid thing to do. He doesn't want to make it public because he wants to keep the reputation not only of himself but his family. So he doesn't tell. He assumes everybody's going to be, kind of sane. Everybody loses their mind with that mass hysteria project. And by the end of the play, he's a ruined man. There isn't any way to save himself. None. Zero. She will say, his wife, Lady Proctor will say, he has his honor at least. Of course, that's not much of a consolation when he's about to get jacked, right? Into the Crucible. Miller wasn't done, though. So he wrote what maybe is an even more important play, and I think probably most people argue that it is. Death of Salesman. What is this play about? Well, let's just say it out loud. It's right there in the title. The Death of a Salesman. So let's just not, let's not be shocked at the end of the play when our protagonist, Willie Loman, is dead. We've known that from the very beginning because it's right there in the title. It's kind of like going to the movie Titanic and not wanting to be told that the boat sinks, you see. Right? Okay, sorry about that. I'll not give any more away than that. Yeah, I'll not give any more than that. 2. This is a play about the changing evolutions of economics. America, by the 1950s, has become an economic powerhouse in the world. You make your way in business. That's how you do it. We have a lead actor, a character that Arthur Miller creates named Willie Loman. Loman is a father of 2 boys, Biff and Hap, and he has a wife, Linda Loman. The 4 of them live a traditional American middle-class existence. Daddy works. Mama stays at home. She's domesticated. She does not work. She's never thought about work outside of the home. Her work in the home is prodigious. She does everything. She tries to keep that family together as being the best wife she can be. The 2 brothers are also very interesting. Each in their own way, they are, how does one say it politely, chips off the old block. They are very much like the old man. An emphasis on old. Point 3. Willy Loman isn't young. Willy Loman is at the end of a career as a salesman. He's come to the end of a career in which now he's no longer understood or appreciated. He has lived, he has worked, and now he's about to be forgotten. In the process of writing this play, Arthur Miller was very interested in a phrase that was just beginning to be used, one that you know easily today: the dysfunctional family. The dysfunctional family. Now today you're aware of what that phrase means. What does that phrase mean? If I say about a family it's dysfunctional, what does that mean? It means what? It does not work. There's something wrong with it. On any number of levels, something is wrong with the family. Okay? So let's write it in our notes. As you watch Death of Salesman, you are watching a dysfunctional family. Question for your notes: why is it dysfunctional? Question 1. Question 2 for your notes: can it be fixed? Is there any way to repair a dysfunctional family? Later, when we study Eugene O'Neill's Long Day's Journey into Night, our final play of our semester, Eugene O'Neill, another really important American playwright, we'll play the same game in terms of dysfunctionalism one more time of a family. Willy Loman has a secret. I'll try not to be too much of a spoiler, but I have to give you some intel. Willy Loman has a secret. That secret is not known to all the members of his family, only to one of the members of his family. Buried then in the heart of that family, the dysfunctionalism will grow out of this secrecy. Loman, as an old man, has the Aristotelian understanding of hubris, pride. He does not want to admit that he has made a mistake. That mistake will serve as the center point of our play. Do you remember in the Crucible, remember these are the same two plays written by the same author. Do you remember in the Crucible when John Proctor is standing in front of the court and he's asked about what's going on with Abigail Williams, and he tells, remember this? Abigail Williams defends herself by saying, there ain't no way. John Proctor says, what about Lady Goody Proctor? She never what? She never lies. Ask her. She'll tell you the truth. And you remember that famous scene where she's brought in front? Of course, John Proctor and Abigail have to not look at her. They have to face away. And the question becomes a simple one. The entire play is resolved in this moment when Goody Proctor is asked, did your husband sleep with Abigail Williams, and is that why you put her out? It's a simple question. There is no confusing this question. All John Proctor's wife has to do is say, yeah, he did it. My husband slept with a younger girl, and because of that, and I discovered it, I threw her out. Yeah, that's what happened. I'm sorry. In that moment, everything is solved in regards to the plot line of the play. I mean, obviously, John Proctor may have some issues afterwards, but maybe they solved themselves out that way. Instead, darkly, ironically, in that pivotal moment, for the first time in her life, Goody Proctor what? Lies. And you can hear it in audiences. I've taken students to see the Crucible and sat in the audience with some 500 or more people. And at the moment that she says, no, he didn't. No, he did. You can hear a groan that goes across the audience like, no, what? Are you kidding me? Every time I show this performance in the 303, every time it comes to that moment, I'm always attuned to listen, to hear the same qualifiable, no, are you kidding? And in that moment, of course, everyone, and what's funny is even as I speak about it, some of you can immediately be transported back to that. That's the power of a good play. Back to that moment. For your notes, question and observation. We want to pay attention to the play Death of Salesman. And we want to ask, is there a similar moment in this play? where the entire play hinges on that moment? The answer, by the way, to that is yes, there is. And it will bring to light, full circle, this secret that is a foundational part of the dysfunctionalism of this family. Finally, Miller wants to make some observations about American culture. No doubt he's talking about family in this play. And he makes the observation in this play about family that family is as much about where you learn how to lie and hurt and hate as it is about the place where you learn how to love. For that, Miller took a lot of heat. But there's another element to this play that's foundational in regards to what's wrong with America's love of capitalism. We were studying F. Scott Fitzgerald's Great Gatsby, and we wrote about the American dream and the notion of the American dream. By the 1950s, that American dream idea is central in American psyche. Making money, working hard, all of that. Miller is going to contest that in some way. He's going to challenge that idea in some way. Willy Loman is a salesman who gave his entire life to make money. At the end of his life, he has nothing. He has nothing. Okay? Another way to ask this is this way, and you can write this question down in your notes, and as you watch the play, it'll be sensitive to you then. Is Willy Loman a happy man? Or is he a sad man? Is he a frustrated man? Or is he a fulfilled man? See, this is an intriguing question. It's a question worthy of our consideration as well. As we watch this play, we will want to watch to see, where does Miller come down on this one? What is his thoughts about this one? And in the end, Willy Loman is a dead man walking. We know that from the beginning of the play. All of the lines that he speaks are the lines of a man who soon will end his life. So everything is kind of, all the action on the stage is kind of hanging with that understood. All right? Okay, so there you